The tornado sirens began before Marcus Reed heard the baby cry. At first, the sound disappeared beneath the wind, rolling across the Oklahoma pasture. The sky west of the ranch had turned the color of a fresh bruise, green at the edges and almost black in the center. Dust spiraled over the gravel drive, over the gravel. The horses pressed against the far walls of their stalls, eyes wide, nostrils flaring as thunder shook the rafters. Marcus was leading a nervous bay mare toward the reinforced shelter when the cry came again. Thin, sharp, human. He stopped in the center aisle of the barn. The mare jerked against the lead rope. "Easy, Ruby." Another cry rose from the last stall, the one no horse had occupied since winter. Marcus tied Ruby to a post and ran toward it. His boots struck the packed dirt hard enough to send dust into the air. The stall door had been pulled nearly shut, but a strip of white fabric hung beneath it. He shoved the door open. A newborn baby lay inside an old wooden feed box. For one impossible second, Marcus only stared. The child was wrapped in two blankets, one yellow and one gray, with a knit cap pulled low over her forehead. Her face was red from crying. One tiny fist had escaped the blanket and waved beneath a hanging bulb. Beside the box, a chestnut mare lay on her side in the straw, breathing in quick, shallow bursts. Blood darkened her hind leg. Marcus dropped to his knees. Good Lord. He touched two fingers to the baby's neck. Warm skin, strong pulse. The cord had been cut and clamped, though not neatly. The child looked no more than a few hours old. The mare groaned. Marcus knew her. Willow belonged to the ranch owner's daughter and had been missing since dawn. He reached for his phone. Before he could unlock it, headlights flashed through the open barn doors. A county sheriff's cruiser skidded to a stop outside. Sheriff Wade Mercer stepped into the barn with rain streaking the shoulders of his uniform. He was 60 years old, broad through the chest, silver-haired, and calm in the way men became calm after decades of expecting everyone else to obey them. His gaze found the baby. Then it found Marcus. "What happened?" Mercer asked. "I was about to call it in." Marcus looked at the sheriff's hands. They were bare, but mud covered the cuffs of his trousers. There was straw stuck to one knee. Mercer moved closer. "Give me the child." Marcus did not stand. "We need an ambulance. The roads are about to close. Then call county rescue." "I said give me the child." The mare kicked weakly against the dirt. Marcus pulled the blankets tighter around the baby. "Who left her here?" Mercer's face did not change, but something cold moved behind his eyes. "That's not your concern." A gust of wind slammed one of the barn doors against the wall. The lights flickered. Ruby screamed from the center aisle. Marcus had lived in Payne County nearly 12 years. He knew Wade Mercer's reputation. The sheriff spoke softly. He attended every church fundraiser. He shook hands at high school football games and sent deputies to deliver groceries after ice storms. He also hated being questioned. Marcus stood with the baby cradled against his chest. "This child needs a hospital." Mercer stepped closer until they were less than 3 feet apart. "Mr. Reed, you are standing in a barn during a tornado warning with an injured horse and a newborn whose mother could be bleeding to death somewhere nearby. You have no idea what happened, and you are making the situation worse. Then help me find the mother." Mercer's jaw tightened. The sirens wailed beyond the barn. Marcus looked down at the child. A fold of the gray blanket had slipped away from her neck. Just below her right collarbone was a small, dark mark shaped like a crescent moon. Marcus forgot the storm. He had seen that mark before. His younger sister, Lenora, had carried the same crescent beneath her collarbone from the day she was born until the day Marcus identified her body at a hospital in Tulsa. The baby cried again. Mercer reached for her. Marcus stepped back. The sheriff's voice lost its softness. "Hand her over." "No." The word seemed to surprise both men. Mercer glanced toward the barn doors, where the sky had become nearly black. "You don't understand what you're involved in." "Then explain it." "I don't owe you an explanation." Marcus held the baby more securely. "You arrived too fast." Mercer's face hardened. No ambulance, no deputies, no questions about how she got here. You walked in and knew exactly where to look. A low roar rolled across the fields. It was not thunder. Every horse in the barn began to panic. Mercer turned toward the open doors. The wind had flattened the grass. A gray wall moved beyond the southern fence, broad and violent, swallowing trees as it came. The tornado was less than a mile away. Marcus ran. He tucked the baby inside his coat and hurried toward the reinforced shelter at the rear of the barn. Mercer followed as boards tore loose from the roof. Ruby pulled free from the post and bolted down the aisle. "Leave the mare," Mercer shouted. Marcus opened the shelter door and pushed the sheriff inside. Then he turned back. Willow still lay in the stall, trapped beneath a fallen divider. Marcus grabbed the end of the wooden rail and lifted. Pain shot through his shoulders. The mare thrashed, her injured leg scraping across the dirt. "Marcus," Mercer yelled. The roof groaned. Marcus pulled harder. The rail shifted. Willow kicked free and struggled upright. She staggered into the aisle just as a section of metal roofing ripped away above them. Marcus slapped her hindquarter. "Go!" The mare ran toward the shelter. The tornado struck the outer pasture. The world became noise. Marcus reached the shelter as Mercer dragged Willow inside by her halter. They slammed the steel door and dropped the bar into place. The baby screamed against Marcus's chest. Dust poured through the vents. The horses pressed against one another, trembling. A toolbox flew from a shelf and shattered against the wall. Somewhere outside, lumber snapped like rifle fire. Marcus crouched in a corner and shielded the baby with his body. Mercer sat across from him, one hand gripping a support rail. Neither man spoke. Then, through the roar, Marcus heard the sheriff say something he would remember for the rest of his life. She was never supposed to bring the baby here. The tornado passed in less than 4 minutes. It left silence behind. Not true silence. Horses breathed. Rain struck the metal shelter. Somewhere in the damaged barn, water poured through a broken pipe. But the great roar had moved east. Marcus lifted his head. Mercer was staring at him. "You heard me?" the sheriff said. Marcus looked down at the child. "Who brought her?" Mercer stood slowly. "You're going to give me that baby, and you're going to forget what you think you heard." Marcus rose with him. The sheriff's hand rested near his holster. It might have been habit. It might not. Marcus had spent 8 years in the army before a roadside bomb outside Kandahar damaged his left knee and ended his military career. He had seen armed men make decisions in the space between fear and pride. He knew the most dangerous moment was often not when a weapon appeared, but when a man decided he had already gone too far to turn back. "You planning to arrest me?" Marcus asked. "If necessary." "For what?" "Kidnapping." Marcus stared at him. Mercer's expression remained steady. "You were found alone with a newborn," the sheriff said, "on private property. during a storm. No witnesses? You were here. I arrived after you. The meaning settled between them. Marcus looked at the sheriff's uniform, the badge polished bright even in the dim shelter, the radio at his shoulder, the weapon at his side. Then he looked at the baby. Her cries had weakened into small, exhausted sounds. Mercer held out both hands. Don't ruin your life for a situation you don't understand. Marcus thought of Lenora. She had been 22 when she died. Smart, stubborn, always laughing too loudly in quiet places. The official report said she had lost control of her car on a wet road north of Cushing. No drugs, no alcohol, no other vehicle involved. Marcus had believed it because grief left little room for suspicion. Now he saw the crescent-shaped birthmark beneath the newborn's collarbone. The same mark, the same side, the same size. He stepped toward the door. Mercer drew his gun. The horses reacted before Marcus did. Willow reared against the back wall. Ruby screamed. Another horse kicked the door hard enough to bend the lower panel. Mercer's weapon shifted toward the sound. Marcus moved. He caught the sheriff's wrist with one hand and drove his shoulder into Mercer's chest. The gun discharged into the ceiling. The baby cried beneath Marcus's coat. Mercer struck him across the jaw. Marcus twisted the gun free and threw it beneath the horses, where neither man could safely reach it. They stumbled against the wall. Mercer was older, but powerful. He drove a fist into Marcus's injured knee. Marcus collapsed. The sheriff reached for the baby. Willow lunged between them. Her head struck Mercer in the shoulder and sent him crashing against a shelf. The mare planted herself over Marcus, trembling but refusing to move. Marcus stared up at her. The injured horse had chosen a side. A voice crackled over Mercer's radio. "Sheriff, do you copy? County command to Sheriff Mercer." Mercer froze. The voice came again. "Multiple structures down south of Highway 51. We need all available units." Marcus stood, using Willow's neck for support. Mercer looked at the radio, then at the baby. He seemed to understand that the storm had created too many witnesses, too many calls, too much chaos for him to control the situation completely. He picked up his hat from the floor. "This isn't over." "No," Marcus said. "It isn't." Mercer opened the shelter door. The barn beyond it looked as though a giant hand had torn through the building. Half the roof was gone. Rain fell into the center aisle. 2 stalls had collapsed. The outer wall leaned toward the pasture. The sheriff retrieved his gun from beneath the horses and holstered it. Then he left without another word. Marcus waited until the cruiser disappeared down the damaged road. Only then did he call for help. The dispatcher told him emergency crews were overwhelmed, but a volunteer unit would reach the ranch as soon as possible. She instructed him to keep the baby warm, monitor her breathing, and avoid feeding her anything. Marcus carried her into the ranch house, which had lost several windows but remained standing. He found clean towels, wrapped her again, and set her on the kitchen table beneath a battery lantern. The mark on her chest was unmistakable. He took a photograph with his phone. Then he called the only person he trusted completely. His niece answered on the second ring. "Uncle Marcus? Where are you?" "At the school shelter. The roof over the gym got damaged. But we're okay." Marcus closed his eyes briefly. 17-year-old Tessa had been living with him since Lenora's death. She had her mother's quick temper, her father's height, and a habit of pretending she needed no one. "Stay there," he said. "What happened?" "I found a baby." There was a pause. A what? A newborn. In the barn. You're joking. I'm not. Is she alive? Yes. Where's the mother? I don't know. Marcus looked through the broken kitchen window. In the distance, emergency lights moved along the highway. Tessa, do you remember your mother's birthmark? Silence filled the line. Why? Just tell me. Under her right collarbone, like a little moon. Marcus watched the baby's fist open and close. She has it too. Tessa's voice changed. Who? The baby. Another pause. Longer this time. That doesn't mean anything, she said. It might. What are you saying? I don't know yet. Uncle Marcus, I need you to listen. Sheriff Mercer was here before I called anyone. He tried to take her. What? He threatened to accuse me of kidnapping. Why would he do that? I don't know. Marcus heard voices near Tessa. Students and teachers moving through the shelter. Don't tell anyone what I said. Not yet. That sounds like the kind of thing people say right before everything gets worse. I know. Are you in danger? Marcus looked toward the road. I don't know. That means yes. A vehicle approached the house. Marcus stepped away from the window. I have to go. I'm coming home. No. Stay at the school until I call. You can't tell me there's a mystery baby with mom's birthmark and then order me to sit in a gym. I can, and I just did. You're impossible. You got that from your mother. The line went quiet. Tessa said, don't let anything happen to her. I won't. Marcus ended the call as two paramedics entered through the damaged back door. They placed the baby in a heated transport carrier. One examined Willow while Marcus explained where he had found them. He did not mention the sheriff's threat. Not yet. The ambulance took the baby to Stillwater Medical Center. Marcus followed in his truck after securing the horses and checking the fences. Fallen branches blocked the county road, forcing him through a pasture and over a shallow drainage ditch. By the time he reached the hospital, tornado victims filled the emergency department. Nurses moved between families wrapped in blankets. A boy with blood on his forehead clung to a muddy baseball glove. An elderly woman sat alone beside a vending machine, staring at nothing. Marcus found the baby behind a curtain near the nurse's station. A pediatrician named Dr. Hannah Price stood beside the bassinet. She's stable, the doctor said. Cold and mildly dehydrated, but otherwise in surprisingly good condition. How old? Probably less than 12 hours. Marcus glanced toward the hallway. Did the sheriff come here? Dr. Price studied him. Why? Did he? Not that I've seen. Marcus told her the baby had been abandoned. He left out the confrontation but showed her the photograph of the birthmark. The doctor looked from the phone to Marcus. Birthmarks aren't proof of relationship. I know. But some vascular or pigment patterns can run in families. Can you do a DNA test? Not without legal authorization, unless Child Protective Services requests one. Can they? They can request many things. That doesn't mean they will. A nurse entered and handed Dr. Price a clipboard. The sheriff's office called, the nurse said. They want security notified if Mr. Reed tries to leave with the infant. Marcus felt every muscle in his body tighten. Dr. Price looked at him carefully. Is there something you haven't told me? Yes. He told her everything. The barn, Mercer's arrival, the demand, the threat, the words spoken inside the storm shelter. Dr. Price listened without interrupting. When he finished, she set the clipboard down. I've known Wade Mercer since I was a child, she said. So have most people. He delivered supplies to my parents after the ice storm in 2007. Good men can do bad things. And bad men can do good things. I'm not asking you to believe me because I'm scared. What are you asking? Don't let him take that child without paperwork. The doctor looked at the baby, who slept with one hand beside her face. I can make sure a hospital procedure is followed, she said. Nothing more. For now, that's enough. It was not enough. 20 minutes later, 2 deputies entered the emergency department. Marcus recognized Deputy Cole Danner, a young man who had once brought an injured colt to the ranch after finding it beside the highway. The other deputy was older and unfamiliar. Danner approached Marcus with regret already showing on his face. Sheriff says you need to come with us. Am I under arrest? Not at this moment. What does that mean? It means he wants to ask questions. He already asked questions. The older deputy stepped closer. Sir, don't make this difficult. Dr. Price appeared beside the bassinet. The infant remains under hospital care, she said. We're not here for the infant, Danner replied. Marcus looked at him. Then what are you here for? Danner lowered his voice. The sheriff says a woman reported her newborn kidnapped from a residence north of town. Marcus felt the room tilt around him. What woman? He didn't give me her name. Did she identify me? He said the description matched. What description? Black man in a storm? Danner glanced toward the older deputy. That's enough, the older man said. Marcus looked through the curtain toward the baby. She was sleeping. The sheriff had moved faster than he expected. Call my attorney, Marcus said. Do you have one? Danner asked. I do now. He took out his phone and called Ruth Bell, a local lawyer who handled land contracts, probate disputes, and nearly every problem in Payne County that did not involve murder. She answered with a groggy voice. Marcus, there's a tornado. I noticed. Is Tessa safe? She's safe. I need you at the sheriff's office. The deputies exchanged glances. Ruth became fully awake. What happened? They're saying I kidnapped a baby. There was a long silence. I'll meet you there. At the sheriff's office, Marcus sat in an interview room beneath fluorescent lights, while rain tapped the small reinforced window. Wade Mercer entered carrying 2 cups of coffee. He placed one in front of Marcus. Marcus did not touch it. You assaulted a law enforcement officer, Mercer said. You pulled a gun on me. I drew my weapon after you became aggressive. You fired it into the ceiling during a struggle you started. Marcus leaned back. Mercer sat across from him. Here's what's going to happen, the sheriff said. You'll state that you found the baby alone. You'll state that you panicked during the storm. You'll admit you misunderstood my instructions. Then you'll go home. And the kidnapping report? A misunderstanding. From a woman whose name your deputies don't know. Mercer took a drink of coffee. You're smart enough to know when someone is offering you a way out. Marcus thought of Tessa waiting in the school shelter. He thought of Willow injured in the barn. He thought of the newborn beneath the lantern. What's her name? The baby? The mother. Mercer set down the cup. Walk away. Who is she? Walk away, Marcus. You knew Lenora. The sheriff's eyes shifted almost imperceptibly. That was all Marcus needed. You knew my sister. Everyone knew your sister. No, You knew her 20 years ago. Mercer's expression closed. Marcus leaned forward. She had a child. You're guessing. And that child had a baby tonight. Mercer stood. You should be careful where grief takes you. You should be careful what you buried. The sheriff moved toward the door. Marcus said, she was never supposed to bring the baby here. Mercer stopped with his hand on the knob. You said that in the shelter. The door opened. Ruth Bell entered without knocking. She was 58, silver-haired, and 5 feet tall in her rain boots. She carried a leather briefcase and the expression of a woman already disappointed in everyone present. Sheriff, she said, why is my client sitting in an interview room without being told whether he is detained? Mercer stepped aside. He volunteered to answer questions. No, he didn't. He came willingly. After 2 armed deputies arrived at the hospital. Ruth placed her briefcase on the table. Marcus, are you under arrest? Mercer answered, no. Then we're leaving. She turned toward the door. Mercer said, the kidnapping investigation remains open. Ruth looked back at him. Which mother filed the complaint? That information is protected. Then give me the report number. It hasn't been processed. Interesting. A kidnapping serious enough to bring Marcus in, but not serious enough to process. Mercer's face reddened. Ruth picked up Marcus's untouched coffee and poured it into the wastebasket. We're done. Outside, rain fell across the courthouse square. Marcus followed Ruth toward her car. You believe me? He asked. I believe Wade Mercer is lying. That wasn't my question. Ruth stopped beneath the awning. Your sister came to me once. Marcus stared at her. When? 20 years ago. The storm seemed to fade around them. What did she want? Ruth looked toward the sheriff's office windows. Not here. They drove to Ruth's office above a closed pharmacy on Main Street. The power was out, so she lit 2 candles and unlocked a metal filing cabinet. Marcus stood near the window. What did Lenora tell you? Ruth searched through a row of old folders. She was 17, frightened, pregnant. Marcus gripped the back of a chair. She never told me. She said she couldn't. Why? She claimed the father came from a powerful family. Mercer? She didn't name him. Ruth removed a thin folder and opened it on the desk. Inside was a yellow legal pad containing 3 pages of handwritten notes. Marcus recognized his sister's name at the top. Lenora Reed. She wanted to know if anyone could force her to surrender the baby. Ruth said. I told her no. Then she asked what would happen if the father's family controlled the hospital, the sheriff's office, and the judge. Marcus looked up. What did you say? I said no family controlled all 3. You were wrong. I was young. That's not an excuse. No. Ruth accepted the accusation. She never came back, she said. 2 months later, I heard she had gone to stay with relatives in Kansas. When she returned, she wasn't pregnant. Your mother said the baby had died. That's what Lenora told us. Marcus stared at the notes. The words blurred. 20 years earlier, he had been stationed in Germany. He remembered Lenora calling him one night, crying so quietly he barely heard her. She had said she was scared, but when he asked why, she claimed their mother was ill. He had believed her. By the time he came home, she had changed. The laughter remained, but it came less often. She avoided hospitals. She hated the sound of newborns crying in stores. Marcus had mistaken sorrow for growing up. Did she sign anything? He asked. Not with me. Did you investigate? I tried. Your mother told me to stay out of it. My mother knew? I think she knew part of it. She died without telling me. Fear keeps secrets alive longer than loyalty ever could. Marcus turned away. Ruth slid the notes toward him. There's something else. At the bottom of the final page, Lenora had written a name. Wade. Only that. Marcus closed his eyes. The sheriff was old enough, 40 years old at the time, married, already a deputy, son of a county judge. Lenora had been 17. He was the father, Marcus said. Ruth did not answer. He got her pregnant. We don't know that. Marcus pointed to the page. She wrote his name. She may have meant someone else. In Payne County? There was Wade Collins, Wade Parker. Stop. Ruth fell silent. Marcus took out his phone and opened the photograph of the newborn's birthmark. Lenora's child survived. Ruth studied the image. You can't know that. I know. The certainty frightened him. Ruth closed the file. Then we find proof before Mercer destroys it. They began with the hospital. Stillwater Memorial had demolished its old maternity wing 10 years earlier, but patient records remained in off-site storage. Ruth called a retired administrator she knew and learned that records from 20 years ago had been converted to microfilm. Access required either a court order or written authorization from the patient. Lenora was dead. Marcus, as her surviving sibling, could request some records, but the process would take weeks. They did not have weeks. Who worked maternity back then? Marcus asked. Ruth opened an old county directory. Half the nurses are probably retired. Retired people still talk. By midnight, they had 3 names. The first nurse had moved to Arizona. The second had died 6 years earlier. The third, Evelyn Hart, lived outside Perkins in a small house near the Camargue River. Ruth called twice, no answer. We go in the morning, Marcus said. You should sleep. So should Mercer. You think he will? No. Marcus drove home before dawn. The ranch had survived, though 2 miles of fence were down and the hay shed had collapsed. Willow stood beneath the barn awning with her injured leg, wrapped by the emergency veterinarian. Tessa waited on the porch. She ran toward the truck before he had fully stopped. You didn't call. I was busy. You were arrested. I wasn't arrested. People at school said you were. People at school also once said the water tower was haunted. She hugged him hard. Marcus held her, feeling how close he had come to losing the ordinary life they shared. Tessa stepped back. Where's the baby? At the hospital. Did Mercer take her? Not yet. Her eyes narrowed. What does that mean? Marcus led her inside. They sat at the kitchen table while rainwater dripped into a bucket near the broken window. He told her about Lenora's pregnancy, Ruth's notes, and the name at the bottom of the page. Tessa listened without moving. When he finished, she stared at the candle between them. My mother had a baby. Yes. Before me. Yes. And that baby might be alive. I think so. She looked up. Did Mom know? I don't know. How could she not know? She may have been told the child died. Then the baby you found could be her grandchild? Marcus nodded. Tessa stood so quickly the chair fell, backward. That means I have a sister, or brother, and a niece. Maybe. No, you don't get to say maybe after telling me all this. Tessa, where have they been? I don't know. Who raised them? I don't know. Did Mom look for them? I don't know. Each answer made her angrier. Finally, she shouted, "What do you know?" Marcus stood. "I know your mother was scared. I know someone had power over her. I know Wade Mercer tried to take that baby without calling an ambulance. And I know I won't let him bury this again." Tessa's face crumpled. She died thinking her baby was dead. Marcus moved around the table and held her. For a while, they stood in the damaged kitchen while the sky lightened outside. Then Tessa whispered, "What if she didn't?" Marcus looked down at her. What if Mom found out later? The question opened a door neither of them wanted to enter. Lenora's accident had happened 3 years earlier. On a rainy road, no witnesses. Sheriff Mercer had signed the report. By 8 in the morning, news of the abandoned baby had spread across the county. Local television trucks parked outside the hospital. Reporters described the child as the tornado baby. Social media filled with prayers, theories, and demands that the mother be found. Mercer held a press conference on the courthouse steps. Marcus watched it on his phone while repairing a temporary fence. "We are investigating the circumstances surrounding the infant's discovery," the sheriff said. "At this time, we believe the child was removed from a private residence without lawful consent. A person of interest has been interviewed and released pending further evidence." He did not name Marcus. He did not have to. Comments beneath the live stream did it for him. People posted photographs of Marcus at horse shows, church picnics, and veterans events. Some defended him. Others asked why he had been in a barn with a newborn. One anonymous account claimed he had been seen buying baby formula the week before. That was impossible. It was also shared 400 times. Tessa read the comments over his shoulder. "They're making you look guilty. That's the idea. Say something." "Not yet." "Why?" "Because Mercer wants me angry." "You are angry." "He doesn't need to know how much." Ruth arrived in a mud-covered sedan. They drove to Evelyn Hart's house without telling anyone their destination. The house sat beneath cottonwood trees along a dirt road. A rusted mailbox leaned toward the ditch. No vehicle stood in the drive. Marcus knocked. No answer. Ruth tried the doorbell. Nothing. Marcus noticed fresh tire tracks in the mud. They left recently, or arrived. He walked around the side of the house. A kitchen window stood open. Inside, a chair lay on its side. Marcus called Evelyn's name. No response. Ruth dialed 911. Marcus pushed through the unlocked back door. The kitchen smelled of coffee and something metallic. He found Evelyn Hart in the hallway. She was conscious, but barely. Blood matted the hair above her right ear. One hand clutched a torn envelope. Marcus knelt beside her. "Ms. Hart, can you hear me?" Her eyes opened. She looked at him with sudden fear. "Wait?" "No, Marcus Reed." Her fingers tightened around the envelope. "Lenora's brother?" Marcus felt cold move through him. "You knew her." Evelyn tried to speak, but pain twisted her face. "Don't let him take the child." Ruth appeared behind Marcus. "Ambulance is coming." Evelyn pressed the torn envelope into Marcus's hand. Inside was a brass key attached to a tag. Cimarron Community Bank, Box 317. "What's in the box?" Marcus asked. Her eyes closed. "Proof." The ambulance arrived 10 minutes or later. 2 deputies came behind it. Neither was Cole Danner. Marcus recognized one of them from the sheriff's press conference. The deputy looked at the open back door, Evelyn on the stretcher, and the key in Marcus's hand. "Sir, I need you to give me that." "It belongs to Ms. Hart. She's the victim of a crime." "So secure her house?" The deputy held out his palm. Ruth stepped between them. My client found an injured woman and provided aid. Unless you have a warrant, you may not search or seize his property. It's evidence. Then document your probable cause. The deputy reached for his radio. Marcus slipped the key into his pocket. Ruth drove toward Stillwater while he watched the road behind them. A patrol car followed for 6 miles. Then it turned away. Samarin Community Bank had closed early because of storm damage, but Ruth knew the branch manager, a cautious man named Samuel Pike. He refused to open the box without Evelyn present. "She's in surgery," Marcus said. "I'm sorry. Someone tried to kill her. That doesn't change bank policy." Ruth placed her hands on the counter. "Mr. Pike, the sheriff will be here within the hour. He will tell you this key is part of a criminal investigation. He will take the contents, and whatever is inside will disappear." Pike glanced toward the security cameras. "You're asking me to break federal law?" "No," Ruth said. "I'm asking you to preserve evidence. Remove the box, seal it, and place it in the bank vault under dual control until a judge can review the matter. That is not standard procedure. Neither is attempted murder." Pike hesitated. The front doors opened. Wade Mercer entered. He removed his hat and smiled at the manager. "Samuel." Pike's face lost color. The sheriff looked at Marcus and Ruth. "Busy morning." Ruth folded her arms. "We were just leaving." Mercer held out a document. "I have an emergency preservation order for Box 3 Yavansane." Ruth took the paper. It bore the signature of Judge Harold Mercer, Wade's older brother. "You got this quickly," she said. "Public safety requires efficiency." Marcus looked through the glass wall toward the vault corridor. "What's in the box?" Mercer smiled without warmth. "You tell me." Pike accepted the order. Ruth examined the signature. "This order preserves the contents. It does not authorize release to law enforcement." Mercer's smile faded. "It authorizes the bank to secure the box, under court supervision. I am the court's appointed custodian. No, you're the sheriff named in a potential complaint by the woman who rented it." Mercer stepped closer. "You're making accusations based on the confused statements of an injured old woman. Then you won't mind if state investigators handle it." Pike looked between them. "I'm sealing the box," he said. "Now no one receives access without another order." Mercer turned toward him. "Samuel." "No." The word shook as Pike said it, but he repeated it. "No, Sheriff." Mercer stared at him. For the first time, Marcus saw a crack in the sheriff's authority. It was small, but it was there. Outside the bank, Ruth exhaled. "That bought us a day. What happens tomorrow?" Judge Mercer signs a new order. Then we need another judge. We need grounds. Marcus's phone rang. Dr. Price was calling from the hospital. "The baby's mother is here," she said. Marcus stopped on the sidewalk. "Who is she?" "She says her name is Rebecca Vale." "Is she with Mercer?" "No, she came alone." "Where was she?" "She won't say." "Don't let her leave." "I can't detain her." "Then tell her Marcus Reed is coming." Rebecca Vale sat in a private consultation room with the baby in her arms. She was 20 years old, pale from blood loss, with dark hair hanging loose around her face. Her clothes were borrowed from the hospital. A bandage circled one wrist. The moment Marcus entered, she looked toward the door behind him. "You came alone?" "Ruth Bell is outside." "Who's that?" "My attorney." Rebecca laughed once, bitterly. "Of course you need one." Marcus sat across from her. The baby slept against her chest. You left her in the barn. Rebecca's arms tightened. I was coming back. In a tornado? I didn't know what else to do. Why that ranch? She looked at him. You really don't know? No. Her eyes filled with tears. My mother told me to find you. Marcus leaned forward. What's her name? Rebecca swallowed. Allison Mercer. The room became very still. Wade Mercer's daughter? She was raised as his daughter. Marcus stared at the crescent mark visible above the baby's blanket. But she isn't. Rebecca shook her head. My mother said her real name was Grace Reed. Marcus could not speak. Rebecca watched him carefully. Lenora was her mother. His sister's name sounded different in the girl's voice. Not dead, not distant, connected. How did Allison find out? 3 years ago. The same year Lenora died. Rebecca looked down at the baby. She found adoption papers in my grandfather's safe. They were fake, but they had Lenora's name on them. She started asking questions. Did she contact Lenora? Yes. Marcus closed his eyes. Tessa had been right. Lenora knew. What happened? They met twice. My mother wanted to tell everyone. Lenora told her to wait until they had proof. And then Lenora died. Rebecca nodded. Mom never believed it was an accident. Did she tell the police? The sheriff was the police. Marcus felt rage rise so quickly he had to grip the chair. Where is Allison now? Rebecca began to cry. I don't know. When did you last see her? Yesterday morning. She told me to take the baby and go to your ranch if anything happened. What was going to happen? She had evidence. She said she was meeting someone who could help. Evelyn Hart? Rebecca's eyes widened. You know Evelyn? She was attacked this morning. Rebecca covered her mouth. Marcus waited. After a moment, she whispered. Then he found out. Mercer? My grandfather. The word carried no affection. Why did you leave the baby in the barn? I was followed. A black SUV stayed behind me from town. I knew I couldn't reach the house without leading them there. I saw the barn and left her where someone would find her. What happened to Willow? She was tied near the road. I used her to reach the ranch after my car got stuck. She fell when the wind started throwing debris. You rode an injured horse through a tornado? I was trying to save my daughter. Marcus looked at the baby. Why didn't you stay? Because I saw Sheriff Mercer's cruiser coming. Her voice broke. I thought he would take her and make her disappear, like he did to my mother. Marcus sat back. Rebecca had given birth hours earlier, ridden through a storm, abandoned her newborn to protect her, and hidden while the county called Marcus a kidnapper. Where did you go? An old hunting cabin near the river. How did you get to the hospital? I walked to a farmhouse this morning and borrowed a phone. Why come back? Because the news said you were being investigated. Marcus studied her. You could have kept running. She's my child. You left her. To keep her alive. The words filled the room. Dr. Price entered quietly. Child Protective Services is on the way. Rebecca's face went white. No. You arrived after an unattended delivery, the doctor said gently. You abandoned a newborn during a tornado. They are legally required to assess the situation. They'll give her to my grandfather. Not automatically. You don't know him. Marcus stood. Neither do you. Rebecca looked at him. "You know the man who raised your mother," Marcus said. "I need to know who he was before that." Rebecca wiped her eyes. "He was married to my grandmother, Margaret. They had no children. According to Mom, he had an affair with Lenora when she was 17. Marcus's stomach twisted. He raped her? Rebecca flinched. "My mother didn't know. Lenora never told her exactly what happened." Marcus did not need exact words. A 40-year-old deputy, a frightened 17-year-old girl, a family powerful enough to rewrite a birth. "He took the baby," Marcus said. "His father was the county judge. His uncle sat on the hospital board. They told Lenora the baby died. Then they gave Mom to Wade and Margaret." "Did Margaret know?" Rebecca nodded. "She said they were saving everyone from scandal. Saving themselves." "Yes. Why did Allison stay?" "She had nowhere else to go, and she wanted proof before she confronted him." Marcus looked through the window in the consultation room door. A deputy stood near the nurse's station. Not Danner. "He knows you're here." Rebecca followed his gaze. "What do we do?" Marcus thought of the bank box. Evelyn's warning. Lenora's notes. The hospital records. "We make sure the truth gets too big to bury." Child Protective Services placed the baby in temporary hospital custody while Rebecca received treatment. Marcus objected when the assigned caseworker said a kinship placement would be considered. "Not with Wade Mercer," he said. The caseworker, a tired woman named Denise Holloway, looked over her glasses. "He is the child's great-grandfather. He's also the man accused of stealing her grandmother at birth." "Accused by whom?" "Her mother." "Do you have documentation?" "Not yet." "Then legally, he remains family." Rebecca gripped the edge of the hospital bed. "He will hurt her." Denise softened slightly. "I can request emergency exclusion if there is evidence of a safety risk." Marcus looked at Ruth. Ruth said, "We'll have evidence." By afternoon, the sheriff had issued a public statement identifying Rebecca as the child's mother and Marcus as a possible accomplice in an attempted abduction. The story changed instantly. News crews moved from the hospital to Marcus's ranch. Commentators described Rebecca as unstable. An unnamed law enforcement source claimed she suffered from postpartum delusions. Mercer announced that he was seeking temporary custody of the baby to protect his family during a traumatic crisis. Marcus stood in the hospital lobby watching the statement on television. The sheriff looked tired, concerned, grandfatherly. He said, "We love Rebecca. She needs help, not judgment." Rebecca stared at the screen. "He practiced that voice on me my whole life." "What voice?" "The one that makes cruelty sound like concern." Mercer left the courthouse surrounded by cameras. A reporter asked whether the baby was safe. He placed one hand over his heart. "She will be." Marcus turned away from the television. His phone rang. Deputy Cole Danner asked to meet privately. They chose an abandoned feed store outside town. Danner arrived in his personal truck wearing jeans and a ball cap. "You're being followed," he told Marcus. "I know." Sheriff assigned 2 deputies to watch the ranch. "Why are you telling me?" Danner looked exhausted. "Because the kidnapping report was fake." Marcus waited. The woman who supposedly called never existed. The phone number traced to a prepaid device registered under a false name. "Can you prove that?" "I copied the dispatch log before it disappeared." Danner handed him a flash drive. "What else?" The sheriff ordered us not to contact state police about the baby, said it was a local custody matter. A newborn abandoned during a tornado isn't a custody matter. I know. Why help me? Danner looked toward the empty road. My mother gave birth at Stillwater Memorial 20 years ago. Evelyn Hart was her nurse. Marcus understood. You think Evelyn told you something? She called me last week, asked if I remembered a fire in the records room when I was a kid. Do you? Yes. My father worked maintenance at the hospital. He came home with burns on his arms. What was destroyed? Old maternity files. Marcus felt the shape of the conspiracy widening. Your father started the fire? Danner's jaw tightened. He said he was ordered to destroy one box. By whom? He never told me. He drank himself to death instead. Danner handed Marcus a folded sheet of paper. It was a photocopy of a hospital ledger. A line dated 20 years earlier listed Lenora Reed, female infant, live birth, transferred. No destination recorded. Marcus read it twice. She lived. Yes. Where did you get this? My father kept it. Why? Insurance. Against Mercer? Against everyone. Danner pointed to the initials beside the transfer entry. E.H. Evelyn Hart. She helped move the baby, Marcus said, or tried to document it. Marcus folded the paper carefully. Will you testify? Danner looked toward the town. Not yet. Then this can be called fake. If I testify now, Mercer will arrest me, seize the original ledger, and say I altered it. So what do you want? Get the bank box opened. How do you know about it? Danner's silence answered the question. Marcus stepped closer. Are you working for him? No. Then how do you know? I heard Mercer tell Judge Mercer to sign the order. What does he think is inside? A recording. Of what? Evelyn confessing. Marcus studied him. Why would she record herself? Because she knew no one would believe her. A truck passed on the highway. Danner waited until it disappeared. Your sister's accident report was altered, he said. Marcus stopped breathing. How? The original scene photos showed tire marks from another vehicle. Where are they? Gone. Who altered it? Mercer signed the final report. Rage pressed against Marcus's ribs. Danner saw it. Don't confront him. You think I'm afraid of him? I think he wants you angry enough to make a mistake. Marcus looked at the flash drive and photocopy. Why now? Because I saw the baby. Danner's voice dropped. She doesn't know any of this yet. She deserves a chance to grow up before someone teaches her that powerful men can rewrite her life. That evening, Marcus returned to the ranch and found every exterior gate chained by order of the sheriff. A notice on the barn declared the property a crime scene. The horses had been moved to the lower pasture. Tessa stood on the porch arguing with two deputies. This is our home, she shouted. You can remain in the residence, one deputy said. You cannot enter restricted structures. You mean the barn where my uncle found evidence. The deputy saw Marcus and straightened. Sheriff's orders. Marcus walked toward him. Show me the warrant. The deputy handed him a document. It authorized the search of the barn for evidence related to infant abduction. Judge Harold Mercer had signed it. Ruth arrived 10 minutes later and read the warrant under the porch light. It's broad enough to seize nearly anything, she said. They already took the blankets, Tessa said, and Uncle Marcus's tools. Why the tools? They said a knife could have cut the cord. Marcus looked toward the barn. They're building a case. Then we build faster, Ruth said. The next morning, Evelyn Hart regained consciousness. She asked for Marcus. The hospital refused to admit him because Mercer had placed a deputy outside her room. Dr. Price helped anyway. She arranged for Evelyn to be moved for imaging. During the transfer, Marcus entered a supply corridor and spoke to her through the open side of the gurney. Evelyn looked smaller than she had in her house. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For what?" "For helping them." Marcus leaned closer. "What did you do?" "I was the charge nurse. Wade brought Lenora in after midnight. She was in labor, terrified." "Was she hurt?" Evelyn's eyes filled. "She had bruises." Marcus felt his hands curl into fists. "Did she consent to the adoption?" "No." "Did she consent to anything?" "No." The answer came with no hesitation. He told everyone she was unstable. His father brought papers. Lenora was sedated after delivery. "What happened to the baby?" "Margaret Mercer took her through a private exit." "You let them." "I had 2 children. My husband had lost his job. Wade said I would go to prison if I interfered." "You let them?" Evelyn closed her eyes. "Yes." The word carried 20 years of punishment. "Did Lenora see the baby?" "Once." Marcus could barely ask. "What did she say?" "She said the baby had her mark, the little moon." Evelyn opened her eyes. "She made me promise to remember." Marcus looked away. The hospital corridor blurred. "What's in the bank box?" "Original documents. A cassette recording. Photographs. Of Lenora and Wade." "Did he kill her?" Evelyn's breathing changed. "I don't know." "You told Rebecca's mother to meet Lenora?" "Yes." "Did Wade know?" "Not at first." "What happened the night Lenora died?" Evelyn gripped the blanket. "She called me. Said someone had followed her from Allison's house. She was driving to Tulsa to meet a reporter." Marcus leaned closer. "Which reporter?" "Daniel Voss." "Where is he?" "Dead." The word struck like a blow. "When?" 2 weeks after Lenora." "How?" "Heart attack." Marcus stared at her. "Was it?" "I don't know." A door opened at the far end of the corridor. The deputy appeared. Marcus stepped back. Evelyn caught his sleeve. "Box 3 of 17 is not the only proof." "Where else?" "The mayor." Marcus frowned. "What mayor?" "Willow." The deputy approached. Evelyn released Marcus. He left through the stairwell before the deputy reached them. Willow stood in a temporary stall at a veterinary clinic south of town. The veterinarian, Dr. Caleb Shaw, allowed Marcus inside after closing. The mare's wound ran along her hind leg, a deep cut from metal debris. She greeted Marcus with a low nicker. "The nurse said the mare was proof," Marcus told Caleb. The veterinarian examined the halter and saddle Rebecca had used. "Nothing unusual." Marcus ran his hands over the saddle blanket. Mud, blood, burrs. Then his fingers found a hard ridge beneath the stitching. He cut the seam with a pocket knife. Inside was a waterproof memory card. Caleb looked at him. "That's not standard horse equipment." They inserted the card into a laptop in the clinic office. The first file was a video recorded by Allison Mercer. Marcus knew her immediately. She had Lenora's eyes, not similar eyes. The same direct, searching gaze that made a person feel measured and seen at once. Allison sat inside a parked car. "If you're watching this," she said, "something happened to me." Her voice trembled, but she continued. "My name is Allison Mercer. I was born Grace Lenora Reed. Wade Mercer is my biological father. Lenora Reed was my biological mother. I was taken from her without consent on October 17th, 20 years ago. Marcus stopped the video. The room was silent except for Willow shifting in the stall beyond the wall. He pressed play again. Allison described the adoption papers, the hospital ledger, and Evelyn's confession. She said Wade had threatened her after discovering she had contacted Lenora. Then she made a final accusation. 3 years ago, my mother, Lenora, died in what the sheriff's office called a single-car accident. I believe Wade forced her vehicle off the road. Marcus stared at the screen. Allison lifted a photograph toward the camera. It showed tire damage on the side of Lenora's car, damage absent from the official report. I found this photograph in Deputy Danner's father's files, Allison said. Wade knows I have it. The video ended. A second file began automatically. This one showed the interior of Wade Mercer's office. Allison had hidden a camera. Mercer stood behind his desk. You don't know what Lenora was like, he said. She was 17. She wanted money. She wanted her baby. I gave you a better life. You stole me. I saved you. You assaulted her. Mercer's face changed. You need to stop using words you don't understand. I understand exactly what happened. You understand nothing? Allison stepped into view. Did you kill her? Mercer looked toward the hidden camera without seeing it. Then he said, Lenora died because she never knew when to stop. The recording ended. Caleb sat back. That's enough to call state police. Maybe. Maybe. He didn't confess directly. He came close. Close isn't enough for men like Mercer. Marcus copied the files to 3 devices. He sent one to Ruth, one to Danner. The third he uploaded to a private cloud account. Then he called the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation. An agent agreed to meet the next morning. Marcus left the clinic after dark. A black SUV followed him onto the highway. He drove past the turn to his ranch. The SUV stayed behind him. He called Tessa. Are you home? Yes. Lock the doors. What happened? Do it now. Marcus accelerated. The SUV matched his speed. At the next intersection, Marcus turned onto an unpaved county road. Dust rose behind him. The SUV followed. He knew the terrain better. The road crossed a narrow cattle guard, curved around a dry creek, and ended near an abandoned quarry. Halfway there, Marcus turned off his headlights and cut through an open gate into a pasture. The SUV continued past. Marcus waited. 30 seconds later, reverse lights appeared. The driver had realized. Marcus drove across the field toward a second gate. The SUV entered behind him. Its headlights bounced violently over the uneven ground. Marcus reached the gate, jumped out, and swung it open. He drove through and closed it behind him. The SUV did not slow. It struck the metal gate and tore it from the hinges. Marcus called 911. No signal. The SUV rammed the rear of his truck. His head snapped forward. He gripped the wheel and kept driving. A creek crossing lay ahead. The storm had filled it with rushing brown water. Marcus knew the concrete bed beneath the surface, but the driver behind him might not. He entered at an angle, keeping his left wheels along the shallow edge. The SUV followed straight through the center. Water rose over its hood. The engine died. Marcus reached the opposite bank and stopped. 2 men climbed from the SUV. One carried a gun. Marcus drove away. He reached the ranch 20 minutes later. Tessa was not there. The front door stood open. A lamp lay broken in the hall. Marcus called her name. No answer. His phone rang. Wade Mercer spoke without greeting. You should have walked away. Marcus stood in the dark kitchen. Where is she? Safe for now. If you touch her, you're not in a position to threaten anyone. What do you want? The memory card. Marcus closed his eyes. How do you know about it? Allison made mistakes. Is she alive? Mercer paused. Bring the card to the old grain elevator north of Ripley. 1 hour, come alone. I want to hear Tessa. A rustling sound? Then Tessa's voice. Uncle Marcus, don't. The line cut. Marcus gripped the phone so tightly the screen cracked. He called Ruth. No answer. He called Danner. The deputy picked up immediately. They took Tessa. Mercer? Yes. Do not go alone. I don't have time. Listen to me. OSBI agents are on the way. He gave me 1 hour. Send me the location. Marcus did. Then he drove. The grain elevator had been abandoned since the 1990s. Its concrete silos rose beside the railway like broken teeth. Wind moved through empty loading bays. Marcus parked 50 yards from the entrance. He carried the original memory card in his shirt pocket. The copies were already safe. Inside, a single work light shone beneath the loading platform. Tessa sat in a metal chair with her hands tied. Wade Mercer stood beside her. 2 men waited in the shadows. Marcus recognized one from the SUV. Let her go. Mercer held out his hand. The card. Marcus removed it. Tessa shook her head. Don't give it to him. Mercer placed one hand on her shoulder. Marcus stopped. You think destroying this changes anything? It changes enough. Copies exist. You're bluffing. Try me. Mercer's eyes narrowed. Lenora said the same thing. Marcus felt the air leave his chest. What? She always believed someone would come save her. Tessa stared at the sheriff. Mercer seemed to realize he had spoken too freely, but pride pushed him forward. I gave her chances, he said, more than she deserved. She was a child. She knew exactly what she was doing. Marcus stepped closer. One of the men raised his gun. Mercer said, Stay where you are. What happened on the road? The sheriff looked at him. Did you hit her car? Mercer's jaw tightened. Did you force my sister off the road? She lost control. Because you struck her. She should have stopped. The words echoed through the elevator. Tessa began to cry silently. Marcus kept his eyes on Mercer. You killed her. I protected my family. You protected yourself. I protected Allison. I protected Margaret. I protected this county from a scandal that would have destroyed everyone. You destroyed everyone anyway. Mercer's face twisted. You don't know what it cost me. Marcus almost laughed. The sheriff still believed he was the victim. A faint red light blinked near Tessa's shoe. Her phone. She had dropped it beneath the chair. The call screen was active. Someone was listening. Marcus needed Mercer to keep talking. What about Allison? Mercer's expression flickered. Where is she? She chose the wrong people. Is she alive? Mercer looked away. That was answer enough. Marcus took another step. The armed man moved toward him. Suddenly, Tessa kicked the work light. Darkness swallowed the room. Marcus lunged toward the gunman. A shot cracked above him. He struck the man's wrist and drove him into a support beam. The gun fell across the concrete. Tessa screamed. Another shot fired from the loading platform. Marcus crawled toward her voice. Red and blue lights flashed through the broken windows. Sheriff's office, Danner shouted from outside. Drop your weapons. One of Mercer's men ran toward the rear exit. Agents entered from both sides, the elevator filled with shouts, boots, and beams of light. Marcus found Tessa beneath the chair. He cut the rope with the knife from his belt and pulled her against him. You hurt? No. Are you sure? Yes. Across the loading bay, Danner held his weapon on Wade Mercer. The sheriff stood with both hands raised. For the first time in Marcus's life, the badge on Mercer's chest looked small. An OSBI agent removed his gun. Mercer stared at Marcus. This county will tear you apart. Marcus held Tessa close. No, he said. It's done tearing us apart. The rescue should have ended it. Instead, it began the worst week of Marcus's life. Mercer was arrested for kidnapping, obstruction, evidence tampering, and conspiracy. His two accomplices were identified as former deputies working private security. But Allison remained missing. The sheriff refused to speak. Judge Harold Mercer attempted to block the bank box from being opened. Ruth filed an emergency motion in district court, accusing him of a conflict of interest. A visiting judge from another county removed him from the matter. Box 317 was opened under state supervision. Inside were Lenora's original hospital documents, photographs of her injuries, a copy of the fraudulent adoption papers, and a cassette recording Evelyn had made 20 years earlier. On the tape, Wade Mercer admitted taking the child. He also threatened Evelyn's family if she spoke. The evidence led to additional charges. It did not reveal where Allison was. Search teams combed fields, riverbanks, abandoned buildings, and Mercer family property. Nothing. Rebecca remained in the hospital with the baby under supervision. She named the child Nora, after the grandmother she had never met. Marcus visited every day. The first time he held Nora without fear of Mercer entering the room, he studied her face for signs of Lenora. At first, he saw only a newborn. Then she frowned in her sleep. The expression was exactly his sister's. Marcus began to cry. Rebecca sat beside him. "My mother does that too," she said. "Does what?" "Frowns when she's trying not to laugh." Marcus looked at her. "You said does." Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. "I keep forgetting she's missing." "Missing isn't dead." "No." He returned Nora carefully to her mother. What was Allison like as a child? Stubborn. So was Lenora. She hated horses until she was 12. Then she became obsessed with them. Lenora loved horses. She told me. The words stopped him. Allison talked about her? All the time after they met. Rebecca reached into a bag beside the bed and removed a small notebook. She wrote down everything Lenora told her. Marcus opened it. The first page contained a list. Favorite song, favorite pie, first horse, worst fear, dream job. At the bottom, Allison had written, "She said Marcus always came home when it mattered." He read the sentence twice, then he closed the notebook. "I didn't." Rebecca looked at him. "When she needed me 20 years ago, I was overseas." "You didn't know." "I should have." "How?" "I was her brother." "That doesn't make you a mind reader." "It should make me someone she trusted." "Maybe she trusted you enough to protect you." Marcus looked at her. Rebecca wiped her eyes. "My mother said Lenora didn't tell you because Wade threatened your military career. He said he would claim you assaulted him and make sure you were dishonorably discharged." Marcus remembered Lenora's quiet phone call. She had not been protecting herself. She had been protecting him. The realization broke something inside him. For years, he had believed strength meant showing up, standing between danger and the people he loved. Lenora had been in danger. he never saw, and she had stood between it and him. That evening, Marcus sat alone in the barn beside Willow. The mare's injured leg was healing. She rested her head against his shoulder. He held Allison's notebook in his hands. Tessa entered carrying 2 mugs of coffee. She sat beside him. "You found something?" "Not about where Allison is." Tessa handed him a mug. "Did Mom ever tell you about her?" "No. She told me she had done something she could never fix." Marcus looked at her. "When?" "A few months before she died. I thought she meant leaving my dad." "What exactly did she say?" Tessa stared into her coffee. "She said sometimes people steal years from you, and the only thing you can do is refuse to let them steal what's left." Marcus looked toward the dark pasture. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't know it mattered." Neither had he. The next morning, Danner came to the ranch with news. Search teams had found Allison's car near Keystone Lake. Blood marked the driver's seat. The lake was being searched. Rebecca collapsed when Marcus told her. Mercer's attorney released a statement claiming Allison had suffered emotional instability and may have harmed herself. The statement enraged the county. People who had remained silent began talking. A retired hospital orderly remembered seeing Margaret Mercer carry a newborn through the loading dock 20 years earlier. A former clerk admitted Judge Mercer had ordered adoption records sealed without a hearing. A mechanic said Wade's cruiser arrived at his shop with front-end damage the morning after Lenora's death. The scandal spread beyond Payne County. National reporters arrived. Mercer's carefully built reputation collapsed beneath decades of testimony. Still, he refused to reveal Allison's location. Then Evelyn Hart disappeared from the hospital. A deputy assigned to guard her room had been called away by a false emergency. Her bed was found empty. Marcus received a call from an unknown number. Evelyn whispered, "I know where Allison is." "Where are you?" "I left because the hospital wasn't safe." "Tell me where." "The old Mercer place near the river. That property was searched." "Not the storm cellar." Marcus stood. "Did you tell the police?" "I don't trust the police." "Danner is with us." "I trust you." The line went dead. Marcus called Danner and the OSBI. Then he drove toward the river. The old Mercer homestead sat on 40 acres of overgrown land. The main house had burned years earlier, leaving a stone chimney and part of the foundation. Search teams had cleared the barns and sheds 2 days before. Marcus found Evelyn's car near the tree line. The driver's door stood open. He called her name. No answer. Behind the ruined house, weeds covered a low concrete structure. The storm cellar door had been concealed beneath a sheet of rusted metal and fallen branches. Marcus pulled it open. A foul smell rose from the darkness. He descended with a flashlight. Evelyn lay at the bottom of the stairs, unconscious. Beyond her, someone moved. Marcus raised the light. Allison Mercer sat chained to a pipe. She was alive. Her face was bruised. Her lips were cracked, but when the light reached her eyes, Marcus saw Lenora again. "Marcus?" she whispered. He crossed the room and knelt beside her. "How do you know me?" "My mother showed me pictures." The word mother brought tears to both their faces. Marcus touched her cheek carefully. "I've been looking for you." Allison began to sob. He broke the chain with a rusted bolt cutter found against the wall. Then he carried Evelyn up the stairs and helped Allison into the sunlight. Danner and the state agents arrived minutes later. Allison identified one of Mercer's former deputies as the man who abducted her. He had held her in the cellar under orders to recover the evidence and force her to record a confession claiming she had fabricated everything. When the tornado damaged the property, he fled. She survived on stored water and canned food. Evelyn had known about the cellar because Margaret once threatened to hide Lenora there until she agreed to surrender the baby. The rescue was broadcast live from a distance. Rebecca watched from her hospital room. When Allison entered, mother and daughter held each other so tightly that nurses had to remind them to breathe. Then Allison saw Nora. She touched the baby's crescent birthmark and wept. Marcus stood near the door. Allison looked at him. For a long moment, neither moved. Then she crossed the room and wrapped her arms around him. He held his sister's stolen child, not a replacement for Lenora, not a piece of evidence. Family. "I'm sorry," Allison whispered. "For what?" "For finding her too late." Marcus closed his eyes. "We both found her too late." Allison shook her head against his shoulder. "She said it wasn't too late. She said knowing me gave her something back." Marcus thought of the notebook, the favorite songs, the pie, the dreams. "What did she call you?" Allison pulled away. "Grace. Her real name. The one Lenora had given her before the Mercers took it." "Then Grace it is," Marcus said. The criminal proceedings lasted 18 months. Wade Mercer was convicted of kidnapping, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, evidence tampering, assault, and crimes connected to Lenora's death. Prosecutors proved that he had followed her on the rainy highway and struck her vehicle twice, forcing it into a ravine. He claimed he only wanted to frighten her. The jury did not believe him. Judge Harold Mercer resigned before he could be removed and later pleaded guilty to falsifying court records. Several former hospital officials were charged. Margaret Mercer had died years earlier, beyond the reach of any court. Evelyn Hart testified publicly. She admitted her role and accepted a sentence of probation and community service because of her cooperation. Some people called it too lenient. Others said 20 years of fear had already punished her. Marcus did not know which was true. He only knew justice was rarely clean. The county held a public meeting after the trial. Citizens filled the high school auditorium. Reporters lined the back wall. Families who had once praised Mercer now demanded reforms. Danner stood at the podium in his deputy's uniform. He announced the creation of an independent review board for old cases handled by the Mercer administration. Then Marcus was asked to speak. He had not planned remarks. He looked at the faces before him. Some had defended him from the beginning. Some had called him a kidnapper. Some would never admit they had been wrong. Tessa sat in the front row beside Grace, Rebecca, and baby Nora. Marcus stepped toward the microphone. "My sister was 17 when people with power decided her truth was less important than their reputation," he said. "For 20 years, that lie survived because too many people believed silence was safer." The auditorium was still. Some were afraid. Some benefited. Some told themselves it was none of their business. He looked toward Evelyn. She lowered her eyes. The lie ended because a young mother rode an injured horse through a tornado to save her child. It ended because a nurse finally opened a locked box. It ended because a deputy chose truth over loyalty. It ended because a girl tied to a chair kept her phone recording. Tessa smiled through tears. And it ended because the child they tried to erase grew into a woman brave enough to come home. Grace took Rebecca's hand. Marcus stepped back from the microphone, then returned. "One more thing." The audience waited. Justice is not the same as repair. A conviction can punish a man. It cannot return 20 years to a mother and daughter. It cannot put my sister back at our kitchen table. His voice nearly failed. But we can decide what happens with the years still left. Afterward, the county established a fund for victims of official misconduct. The old Mercer homestead was demolished. The storm cellar was filled with concrete. Grace legally changed her name to Grace Allison Reed. She and Rebecca moved into a small house near Marcus's ranch. At first, Grace said the arrangement was temporary. 6 months later, she bought the house. Rebecca enrolled in nursing school. Tessa left for Oklahoma State University but came home nearly every weekend, claiming the ranch food was better than the dining hall. Danner was elected sheriff the following year. He refused to hold his campaign celebration at the courthouse. Instead, he held it in the repaired barn. Willow recovered fully, though a scar remained along her hind leg. Rebecca refused to ride her again. Nora did. At least she tried. On her second birthday, Marcus found her sitting beneath Willow's belly while the mare stood perfectly still. He lifted the child into his arms. "You're going to give me gray hair." Nora touched his beard. "You already got gray." Grace laughed from the stall door. The sound stopped Marcus for a moment. It was not Lenora's laugh, but it carried something of hers, a rhythm, a brightness, proof that love could travel through lives even when people tried to interrupt it. The ranch changed too. Marcus and Grace created a horsemanship program for foster children and teenagers recovering from trauma. They named it Lenora's Field. The first year, 12 children came. The second year, 37. Some arrived angry. Some barely spoke. Some were frightened of animals larger than themselves. Marcus taught them how to stand beside a horse without pretending not to be afraid. "Fear isn't weakness," he would say. "It's information. Listen to it. Then decide what you're going to do." Evelyn volunteered twice a week. She cleaned stalls, organized medical supplies, and never asked anyone to forgive her. One afternoon, Marcus found her standing beside a framed photograph of Lenora in the barn office. "She should have hated me," Evelyn said. "She might have." Evelyn nodded. "I would understand." Marcus looked at the photograph. "She also might have understood why you were afraid. That doesn't excuse it." "No." Evelyn wiped her eyes. "Do you forgive me?" Marcus considered the question. "Some days." She looked at him. "That's more honest than yes." "It's all I have," she nodded. "Then I'll keep showing up. That's all any of us can do." 3 years after the tornado, another storm crossed Payne County. Not a tornado. Just heavy spring rain and thunder strong enough to rattle the windows. Marcus woke after midnight to the sound of crying. For one terrifying instant, he was back in the damaged barn with Wade Mercer reaching for the baby. Then he realized the sound came from the guest room. Grace and Rebecca had gone to Tulsa for a medical conference, leaving Nora at the ranch. Marcus found her sitting in bed beneath a horse-patterned quilt. "Thunder," she said. "I heard it. It's loud." "It is." "Willow's scared." "Probably not." "How you know?" "Because Willow has survived worse." Nora thought about this. "Me too?" Marcus sat beside her. "You survived a tornado before you could open your eyes." "I brave?" "Sometimes." She frowned. "Sometimes?" "Being brave doesn't mean you never get scared." "What'd it mean?" "It means you don't let fear choose everything for you." Nora leaned against him. Rain moved across the roof. After a while, she asked, "You found me?" "Yes." "In barn?" "Yes." "Why?" Marcus looked toward the dark window. The old question remained. Why had Rebecca reached his ranch? Why had Willow survived? Why had Mercer arrived seconds too late? Why had the child cried at the exact moment Marcus passed the empty stall? He could explain every event. He could not explain the pattern. "Because you wanted to be found," he said. Nora accepted this answer. Children often accepted truths adults spent years resisting. She fell, asleep against his chest. Marcus carried her to the window and watched rain wash the dust from the pasture. The repaired barn stood beneath flashes of distant lightning. Inside it, horses shifted safely in their stalls. Beyond it lay Lenora's field, where rows of grass moved beneath the wind. For 20 years, Wade Mercer had believed power meant controlling the story. He changed names. He altered records. He frightened witnesses. He turned a stolen child into a family secret and a murdered woman into a forgotten accident. But truth had survived in quiet places, in a nurse's locked box, in a mechanic's hidden ledger, in a photograph tucked away by a frightened man, in the memory of a daughter who refused to forget her mother's face, and in the crescent-shaped mark carried from Lenora to Grace, from Grace to Rebecca, and from Rebecca to the newborn Marcus, found beneath a collapsing roof. Nora stirred in his arms. Marcus looked down at her. The little moon was hidden beneath her pajamas, but he knew it was there. Not a curse, not evidence, a legacy. He carried her back to bed and pulled the quilt over her shoulders. Before leaving, he paused at the door. Nora opened one sleepy eye. "You stay?" Marcus returned to the chair beside her. "I'm here." Outside, the storm moved east, and this time, no one in the family had to face it alone.